Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Okay, Facebook was messing with me for a minute. You know, I've been trying since 5 o'clock to get onto this live, and it was just stuck and just hung there. But I guess it just needed more time to think about it. So anyway, I'm a little late, but it's still day 6. So I'm going to jump right in and continue my 21-day challenge, live challenge. So I wasn't going to let that deter me, not one little bit. All right, so I'm happy to be here. I'm LaQuitta Joseph with LaQuitta Joseph Enterprises. I do real estate services as well as live coach services. So today I'm here talking about probate though. So I specialize in probate sales, and I am doing a 21-day challenge and providing you tidbits about probate and the probate process. So today, what I'm going to talk about are the primary steps in the probate process in the state of Georgia. Because if you know, different things, different laws are different from state to state. So this may not be the same in all states, but for the state of Georgia, that is what we're going to talk about. So in short, very quickly, the process, it seems pretty simple. So it's basically you gather all of the information, the assets of the deceased person, and then you pay off all their debts and their taxes, and then you give away, or not necessarily give away, but you give the remaining funds to those who are listed in the will. So I see I have some friends out there. Hi, Melissa. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you so much. And so in short, you know, it seems very simple, but probate can be kind of complicated, even though each step seems simple enough, but the process of going through the courts and gathering together all the people and gathering data pertaining to a deceased person, that's what makes it a little bit more complicated. So let's start with the first step. Step 1 is first you have to file the will with the probate court. So basically you go, whoever the person is, the deceased person, you need to take their will, take it to the probate court to file that will with the courts. Excuse me. And you are going to file that will in the county in which they were living at the time of their death. The county in which they were living at the time of death. And so whether you're going to go through the probate process or not, you still have to file the will. If there's a will, you need to file the will with the probate court. Even if it turns out there are no real assets or anything remaining, that still needs to be filed with the court. So just want to make that clear. Okay, number 2, then you need to petition the court to start the probate process. And so what does that mean? That means you file a petition with the probate court. There are some fees associated with this, so it's not free. And so that they can begin the probate process on the behalf of the deceased. So that's what you have to do. So making sure you file the petition with the court. Third, now what you're going to do is you're going to gather together all of the assets for that particular person, for the deceased person. So you need to go and figure out, you know, what things belong to them, whether they have property, do they have accounts, do they have jewelry, cars, anything like that is in their name and in their name alone. So let's be clear. So because if they have a property, but they have a property with someone else, generally speaking, then that other person would get that ownership of the property. So what we're talking about is assets that are owned by that deceased only. Okay, so you need to gather those things together. And then once you have gathered them all together, then you need to report that to the courts. So you're going to file a report with the court, letting them know here are all the assets that this person has that belongs to them in their name, and you're going to file it with the court. Okay, so once you file all that, now the fourth thing you need to do is now you have to pay off the debts. And so when you have the assets, there may be assets that, one, you may have to sell the assets in order to generate funds for the estate. And so basically the estate are the assets. That's why it's called an estate, but it's really the assets of the deceased person. And so once you do that, you have to go back and say, okay, now that I have these assets, there's something I may need to do with them in order to generate the money so that I can be able to pay off these debts. And so some of that, so that's where all of the red tape may come into play, where things get complicated, because once you have those assets identified and whatever steps that you want to take with those assets, you also have to have an agreement amongst whoever are the other heirs to the estate. So those people get a say-so in that. Hey there, everybody. I see a lot of people out here watching today. Thank y'all for joining me for this Facebook Live. So we're talking about probate today. So I hope you guys find this information helpful for you. And be sure to reach out to me or watch it later so you can catch up and see what I talked about before step 4. So right now we're on step 4, and we're talking about paying off the deceased their debts. And so what happens is you have to put in a notice to those creditors. That it's called notice to creditors, letting them know that this person has passed away and that you're gathering the debts for them to see what should be authorized to be paid on their behalf. And so when you file that notice, you're going to file that notice in the local newspaper so that they can be notified for a period of time. Again, that is also going to be a fee for that. Hey, cousin Martha, I'm so glad you're out there and seeing me today. Yes. So you're going to file that notice with the newspaper to let them know that this person has passed away and you're looking for those debtors. And so once all of those debtors come in and what you decipher who gets paid and who gets paid what, then you will disperse that to them. And then once you've dispersed and paid the debtors, now number 5 is that now you can disperse the remaining funds, remaining assets amongst the people who were named in the will. So typically the heirs or beneficiaries, whoever they may be, you're going to give all of that remaining assets to those individuals based upon how it's spelled out in the will. So based upon how that person defined it in the will is how it will be dispersed. Okay. And so, but once they disperse it, they still, the person who's handling this will, which is typically an executor. So if there is a will, and remember we talked about this yesterday, that if there is a will, that person is called an executor, and the executor is someone who is named inside of the will to manage the assets of the deceased. And so they will have to provide evidence that the people have received the assets that were defined there, and how much that was, or whatever it was, if it was jewelry or anything like that. They need to keep a record of that because they need to report it back to the courts to say to the courts that, hey, I followed the steps in the will and I have dispersed these things to them. And so they will do that. And then finally, to wrap up the probate, they will also have to file a final report with the court indicating that they are ready to close the estate out. And so it cannot be closed out until all of these steps have been taken, if necessary. So another way to get out of it, one, and not necessarily get out of it, but you wouldn't have to do this if there were no assets to be dispersed. So you would not go through this, even if there is a will. So there could be a will, but maybe there are no assets to disperse. And so you may not go through probate. And there are other reasons why you wouldn't go through probate as well. And just those are the 5 steps to the probate process in the state of Georgia. So I hope you all found this helpful. I see lots of people out there today. Cicely, Patricia, Martha is out here. So I just love you all and thank you so much. And I will be back again tomorrow to continue my 21-day challenge. I'll see you then. Bye.